My name is Stephen McHenry. I'm the Executive Director for the Susquehanna and Wyoming County American Red Cross. The initial flood, Irene, occurred August. They have varying dates, but as far as I'm concerned, it was August 28th. And it was a devastating impact. The water rose quite significantly in many areas. We had homes floating down the river. A lot of people were devastated. Their homes, their ability to travel. It was probably one of the, it was obviously the worst storm in 100 years. It's an impact on a limited group of people in Dimock, and in no way to minimize their plight and the disasters that they suffered. It's my understanding that the involved gas companies have done their best to mitigate the loss, and subsequently there's two factions at this particular point: those who have leases with the gas companies and subsequently are looking towards the gas companies for royalties, and there's also the individuals who have had the drilling completed in that area of Dimock, which the fracking has caused contamination to their wells. But in recent months, the drilling and what's known as the Susquehanna pipeline, it's called the Susquehanna County pipeline. I'm sorry, no, I apologize. It's the Springville pipeline, and it starts in Springville up in Susquehanna County. It's just below Dimock, and travels through the heart of Tunkhannock, goes underneath the Susquehanna River, and travels down into Luzerne County. That was a significant impact on a lot of people because that's where all the gas is going to be flowing, and it's only in recent months, probably a year I would say, that the major drilling contingencies have come into the northern hemisphere of the Wyoming County area. And there's quite a few people making money off it, and a lot of people looking to make money off of it as well. I don't think anybody, including myself, fully expected the magnitude to which we were affected. The water started to come down so fast that the shelters were flooding out, and we had to move the crews and the people and the volunteers to alternative locations. Once that initial flood came through Susquehanna County, it hit Wyoming County, and to be quite frank with you, I don't believe anybody knew how devastating it was in those first couple of hours. I do know the notable story is we had a shelter set up in the Mahoopany Township building, and we only had two volunteer managers in the facility. We had 17 cots. We didn't expect a lot of people. At the time, we had 14 individuals staying in the shelter, and the shelter was in jeopardy of being cut off from supplies. So the National Guard was called out with the help of the Emergency Management Agency here in Wyoming County, put them in trucks and drove them around the mountain and came across in the main road and got stuck between two bridges. We actually had to set up a makeshift shelter in Walmart, who spread out some room and moved us in. We wound up with 81 clients staying in the shelter because they had no place to go. The river was on one side and there was bridges on both other sides with a mountain behind them. And we were unable to get supplies over there. We were relying on people who had already put in several hours of time manning the shelter, or womaning the shelter, staffing the shelter, if you will. Further into the disaster, I can give you yes, the call out for volunteers on Facebook, for instance. I don't believe a whole lot of people up in these communities do a whole lot of twittering, but Facebook has become a popular venue for people to communicate with. And a small example to give you the ramifications of what it was as we were setting up and breaking down these shelters, we were running low on supplies at the time, and we had a number of blankets that were not washed and had previously been used by other clients and therefore couldn't be used again. At that time, we put a little message out on the Wyoming County Red Cross Facebook, and literally in less than 10 minutes, we had 3 volunteers knocking on the door saying we can take blankets home and wash them. It was that fast. I never realized how immediate something like that could be. The political agendas aside, I mean, the Red Cross tries to stay neutral, obviously, and in this case, I think it's more, at least since I've come in, the aftermath of organizations. There was many town hall meetings being called both in Susquehanna and Wyoming County to the con side of the drilling, the people who are embroiled in potential lawsuits with the gas companies. We're trying to inform the residents of Wyoming County as to the ramifications and what can happen to try and gain some support. I attended some of those on an informational and a residence as a resident more so than a representative of the Red Cross. But at this point, other than what you're seeing coming out of the newspapers and whatnot, there are not a whole lot of big meetings taking place anymore. It's really, at this point, down to the legal system, actually. Biggest problem for other areas besides here in Wyoming County was the lack of electricity. And without electricity, you don't have hot water to wash, and you can't cook food and things of that nature. So we had with one of the crews to see the devastation, and I likened it to Hiroshima. Not so much of the mass people being killed and so forth, but what you see on the old pictures. There wasn't a blade of grass to be seen in all of Noxon. I mean, it literally was a beautiful little community that just was washed away, and everybody throughout the town had what belongings they had left stacked out on the street, or they're trying to get it out of their houses, only to be inundated again by Tropical Storm Lee that followed subsequently thereafter. This is the Noxon. If you're looking at this map, this is the Noxon area, and when you drove, it just, the waters just flooded right through it. And you see the trees, and there was farmland, there was crops destroyed, and at that point we conservatively estimated some 2,400 homes affected. Was, you were talking about media. We didn't have the ability to communicate to people because there was no electricity, there was no television, okay? And although we were dealing with radios, we were dealing with cell phones, some of the people did have cell phones, even when there's not a storm around these rural areas, cell phones are not always an easy way to communicate. There were hundreds of them. I mean, too numerous to name. The resiliency internally of the people here in Wyoming County and in Susquehanna County as well was absolutely phenomenal. It was so bad. There was a time where I was in Susquehanna County, and I was coming down here to coordinate some additional activities. I could not get into this building because it was surrounded by water, and deep water. We're very close to the river here, but I mean, the emergency command center was surrounded by water, and it was literally no one in, no one out. And that was part of the problem in finding out in the initial stages how affected people were, because not only could they not call us on a cell phone, could they not communicate with us via computer or some sort of an internet connection, but they also couldn't physically get here. Roads were cut off, roads were washed away. That was quite devastating from getting help from anywhere outside the area. And that's where the businesses and community people came through. I can tell you 100, 1,000 stories of people bringing in a box of cleaning supplies that they took out of their home. And, I can tell you about the stories of, the Home Depots and the Walmarts and the supermarkets like Bricks and Thomas's that donated water to the cause. And just said, here, you got it, what else do you need? You just let us know. It didn't end. And if anything, here in Wyoming County and as well in Susquehanna County, it's only gotten stronger from the perspective of, emergency management's working on, potential buyouts and, funds coming from the federal government. But all the local agencies, from churches to the Red Cross to information centers, we meet here in Wyoming County. The Wyoming County Long-Term Recovery Committee meets once a week with several subcommittees meeting weekly as well, and we're coordinating our own panel of people through everything from interfaith, the Red Cross, to the United Methodist Churches, to, I don't want to miss anybody, but to the United Way, and everybody's pulling together in this long-term recovery committee to find out, where are the unmet needs in the community and what can we do about it. And several communities have it. They've been around since the 1970s, I believe, but VOED is Volunteers Organized Against Disaster, is the call letters on an acronym that I'm referring to. And what it is the various church organizations, the various United Ways, Red Cross, people have resources to respond, but there's no coordinated effort as to who has what. How many people can you feed? How many people can you house? How long can you do it for? My hope is that, once this storm gets put to rest, and I'm sure we have many, many, many months ahead of us in both of these counties, but once it gets put to rest, I hope these community organizations keep in touch and meet on a regular basis and share resources and share information so that we can then respond even better the next time. Primarily, things are posted on various, the United Way's website. There are constant blurbs going out on, the United Way Facebook, our Facebook at the Red Cross. Difficult things in an area like this is people's sense of pride and people's sense. I'm a city boy in in this environment now, and people express a fear of the government. They don't want the government to know this or know that. And I'm not trying to disparage the government, but trying to comply with all the FEMA requirements to get aid is quite a task. If you're not familiar with it, it's daunting. And sometimes the educational level of people preclude them from doing it. Sometimes it's just pride that precludes them from doing it. And there's people that need help and are relying on interfaith and the Red Cross and various other church organizations for further aid and assistance. And the United Way has been instrumental. The main components, I believe, is the sense of community, the willingness to help thy neighbor. And it's one of the things, being that city boy that I'm talking about, or a suburban individual. When I came up here, I realized the individual resiliency. Driving down my road, seeing the farmer in the field, crawling under his tractor. And, I'm looking at myself saying, hey, if something happened to my car, I drove it into the garage or a mechanic. These people in this community, in the more rural communities, have to be more self-reliant, and they do care about their neighbors. I'm not saying more so or less so, but they do, and they turned out. And in one case, there was, it's the resiliency in the community, the preparedness, and what we could do in the future, in my opinion, is have more of that teamwork spread out throughout the community, have them trained, have them supplied. The core to surviving here in Wyoming and Susquehanna County is truly the heart of the people. You always have some people who are looking to take advantage in any situation, but for the most part, those were minor issues, and we had more people willing to give than they ever considered taking, and still more people still willing to give, and thanklessly.